Hello, myself Susobun Rai, Assistant Professor of SBIST in EC Department. Today I am going to discuss the basic characteristics or the basic properties of semiconductors. So, what is semiconductor? In solid state materials, there are three kinds of material basically observed. One is conductors, another one is insulator, another one is semiconductor. The conductor means which have basically high conductivity. This is called conductor, like copper, gold, silver. Okay, and the band gap is very less, but theoretically we can say that there is no band gap in a conductive material. The conduction band as well as the valence band both are overlapped to each other. In case of insulator, the band gap is much more, which is greater than 3 electron volt, and it is basically up to 12 electron volt. But in case of semiconductor, the band gap lies in between insulator as well as the conductor, very less band gap, and their conductivity is also lies in between insulator and conductor. That is why it is called semiconductor. Okay. The conductivity of semiconductor is basically depend upon the external voltage, temperature, impurity content, etc. Elemental semiconductor. So semiconductors materials are basically semiconductor species basically are classified into two types. One is single pieces like silicon, germanium, and compound semiconductor. For example, gallium arsenide. And compound semiconductor are also categorized into three types: two element compound like gallium arsenide, gallium nitride. Second, ternary or three element compound like aluminum, gallium arsenide. There are three kinds of materials are used. One is aluminum, second one is gallium, and third one is arsenide. And the last one is four element or quaternary compound like iridium, gallium arsenide, phosphide. There are four elements are present inside this entire semiconductor bead. Next slide. Into the next slide, I am going to discuss the different types of solids. Depending on the geometric arrangement or the ordered region and their constituent of atoms or molecules, there are three types of solids. One is amorphous material, second one is polycrystalline material, and third one is single crystal material. So first one is the amorphous material, have ordered only within a few atomic or molecular dimensions. Okay, their molecular dimension is very small. That is why this kind of material is basically called amorphous material. Second one is polycrystalline material. Polycrystalline means have high degree of order over many atomic or molecular dimensions. These ordered regions are single crystal regions, which are basically vary in size and orientations with respect to one another. And the last one is the single crystalline material. They have basically high degree of order or regular geometric periodicity throughout the entire volume of the material. So there are different diagrams of different crystalline material has been shown in this slide. The first one is figure A represents the crystalline materials, the figure B which represents the amorphous materials. Okay, and the last one is represents the polycrystalline materials which have the high degree of order over many atomic or molecular dimensions. Next, crystalline materials. In crystalline materials, we are going to discuss crystalline materials. At first we have to get some idea about lattice, unit cell and primitive cell. So what is lattice? In a crystalline material, crystalline means this is basically a periodic structure. So the periodic arrangement of atoms in a crystalline or in a crystal is called the lattice. We can represent a particular atomic array by a dot, and that is called the lattice point. That means the lattice point inside a crystal will be represented by a dot. Okay. Next, the unit cell. It is a small volume of a crystal that can be used to represent the entire crystal, and it is not a unique entity. Next one is the primitive cell. The primitive means this is basically the smallest unit cell that would be present inside the crystal and will be repeated again and again to form the crystal. So this is the crystalline materials. Okay, this is a three-dimensional unit cell. The unit cell is nothing but it is the smallest repeating unit in space lattice, which repeated over again in a crystal of a given substance. The space lattice of a crystal has been likened to a wallpaper on which a single pattern is continuously repeated. Okay. The crystal may be considered to consist of infinite number of unit cells, and each unit cells in a three-dimensional space, and there are basically three kinds of vectors which are A, B and C as shown in figure. It should be clearly understood that these are the points. Okay, suppose the distance A represents the axis x. Okay, the distance B is represents the y axis, and the V basically represents the z axis, and the origin is O or 0, whatever it is. It should be clearly understood that these are the points. They are basically not the lines which constitute the space lattice or crystal lattice, and the lines joining the points, if we join the lines between points, are drawn simply for representing three axes and three axes, by means of which the relative positions of the points can be described. So that means if the origin is O, that means here the equivalent lattice point in the three-dimensional crystal can be found using these vectors. So R equal to, what will be happened? R equal to PA, which is the distance. Okay, and second one is plus QB. This is the distance along z axis, and PQS, all of these are the integers, and the third one is SC, and all of these are the three imaginary axes which represents the unit cell, and the angles which are basically alpha, beta and gamma, which gives the angle between these three imaginary axes OX, OY and OZ. A basic crystalline structure. So in basic crystalline structures are categorized into three types. One is simple cubic structure, second one is body centered cubic structure BCC, and the last one is face centered cubic structure FCC. So what is simple cubic structure? So simple cubic, in case of simple cubic structure, the each corner reserved by one atom. That means this is a crystalline structure, the figure 1. There are three-dimensional crystalline structure representing in this slide. So each corner is reserved by a round circle, and this round circle is nothing but it is a atom. That means there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 atoms will be present in case of simple cubic structure. So now what is second one is the body centered cubic structure. So what is BCC? Body centered means in case of body centered, one extra atom will be present, and this atom will presents at the center of the body, this one, and there are also extra 8 atoms which are basically present at each corner of the crystalline structure. Now the third one is face centered. In case of face centered, each and every face of the cubic lattice will be reserved by an atom. So that means there are how many faces? 1 2 3 4 5 6. That means 6 face will be reserved by 6 number of atoms, and there are 8 corners. That means the 8 corner always reserved by 8 numbers of atoms. That means the total number of atoms in case of FCC will be 8 plus 6 14. So now next one is the Miller indices. In case of crystalline structure, it is very helpful to be able to refer to planes and the directions within the lattice. The notation systems generally adopted uses a set of 3 integers to describe the positions of a plane or the directions of a vector within the lattice. The 3 integers describing a particular plane are found in the following way. Number 1, find the intercept of the plane on the 3 Cartesian coordinates in n of the lattice constant. Number 2, take the reciprocals of these numbers and reduce them to the smallest 3 integers having the same ratio. And number 3, enclose the result in parentheses, which is under bracket h, k, l. H represents x axis, k represents the y axis, and l represents the z axis as the Miller indices for a single plane. The 3 integers h, k and l are called the Miller indices. These 3 numbers define a set of parallel planes in the lattice, and the outward, the normal direction is denoted with h, k, l, the square brackets. So these are the different kind of Miller indices. In case of 1 0 0, the directions 1 means 1 is represents the x axis, 0 represents suppose the y axis, and z represents, and 0 another 0 represents the z axis. So these are the important planes of Miller indices for the cubic lattice. All of these are the cubic lattice. For example, if we consider 1 0 0 plane, that means we are going from the origin, this is the origin, from origin towards the x directions, which is 1, on y directions, which is 0, and z directions, which is also 0. Now if we find out the reciprocal of the lattice, that will be 1 by x, that means 1 by 1 equal to 1, 1 by y, that is 0, and the 1 by z, this is also be 0, and this is the plane of the Miller indices on a cubic lattice. Simply in case of 1 1 0, if we moving from the origin towards the x directions, which is 1, Similarly, moving from the origin towards the y direction, which is also 1, and if we moving from the origin towards the z direction, which is 0. Similarly, in case of 1 1, each dimension is 1. That means if we move from the origin towards the x line or x axis, it will be 1. Towards the y axis it will also be 1, and towards the z axis it will also be 1. And this is the triangular shape. The plane is looking like a triangular. Okay. Now in case of minus 1 0 0 plane, what we will see, minus 1 means the moving directions will be the opposite of 1 0 0 plane. That is why it is denoted over here minus sign. That means the moving direction is from this point towards the origin along x axis. That is why it is minus 1. Similarly, along y axis, which is 0, and z axis is also 0. In case of 2 0 0, 2 0 0 means if we take a value, common value 2 from the entire family, then we will get the first one will be, so now in case of 2 0 0, so if we pull out the common factor, so then it will be 2 by 2 1 0 0. So if we moving from the origin along the x axis, which is 1, and if we moving towards the y axis it will be 0, and similarly in case of z axis it will also be 0. Now in case of 1 1 2, if we take out the common factor 2, then obviously we will get the directions along x axis will be 1 by 2 equal to 0.5, y axis this is also will be 0.5, and z axis it will be 1, and then the plane will be looking like a triangle. So these are the basic two important type of crystals. This is the face centered cubic crystals. Okay, we have already seen in previous slides that in case of face centered cubic crystals, there are 6 number of atoms are present in each face. Each face consists 1 atoms. That means there are 6 face. So 6 face will consist 6 number of atoms. And although there are 4 plus 4 equal to 8 numbers of atoms are already present in each corner. Okay, each corner there are 1 atom. That means entire atoms will be 8 plus 6 is equal to 14. This is the electronics configurations of semiconductor, and you can also say this is the band diagram of a semiconductor. So what is basically happen, this diagram, when the atoms are well separated, there is very little interactions between them, and therefore a very little collections of atoms characterized by discrete energy levels. Okay, because each atoms has these energy levels, such as here suppose this is E1 and this is E2. But if you start atoms bringing closer and closer, then what will be happen, energy level gets perturbed or splitted and corresponding to 1, now you have several energy levels, and this is the electrically sharp states become a band due to the overlap and coupling of the atomic waveforms. This is the overlapping regions where both bands are overlapped. This is the lowermost band is called the valence band, and the uppermost energy level, which is basically represents the conduction band, and this is the band gap, which is represented by E of G. So when the interatomic spaces are very high, suppose 100 angstroms or whatever it is, in that case you have energy levels which are discrete in nature. But when the distance is reduced, that means the interatomic spaces will be reduced, then what will be happen? The energy level will be splitted, and this is the basic diagram. So from these expressions we can represent the band bending, the band diagram of a semiconductor material. And this is the electronics configurations of group 4 elements NS2 NP2. There are 6 n states and 2 n electrons and 3 s states, okay, and there are also 2 n state and 2 n electrons. And this is the interatomic spacing, which is 5.43 angstroms, which has been represented over here. And this is the conjunction of electrons and holes. So this is the atomic structures. Suppose this structure is for germanium, okay, and so this is the conjunction of electrons, and this is the crystalline structure of a semiconductor, which is germanium, okay. So from this diagram we can see that each atoms are make a bond with their neighboring atom, and so if we break the crystalline structure externally, what will be happened? A free electron will be generated, and due to the generations of the free electrons, a vacancy will be created inside the covalent bonding, and this vacancy is called the holes. And electrons is basically called the negative in charge particles, and holes are basically positive charge particles. So the flowing directions of these positive charge particles is the opposite of the flowing directions of electrons. This is the band structure of different kind of materials such as conductor, insulator and semiconductor. So this is the first band diagram is for insulator. So there are two band I am considering. One is conduction band and the lowermost is valence band, and the gap, the difference in between conduction band and valence band is basically known as the forbidden gap or the energy band gap, which is at least 3 electron volt for insulator and maximum up to 12 or 13 electron volt. Here I am considering the band gap is 6 electron volt. Now the second diagram is for semiconductor. So from this diagram we can see the band gap is reduced as compared to the insulator, and here the Eg is equal to almost equivalent to 1 electron volt, and there are some free charge particles which are basically called electrons are confined inside the conduction band at a different allotted energy level, and there are some vacancies are created inside the valence band, and these vacancies are basically called the holes, which are positive in charge due to the migrations of electrons from valence to conduction band. Now the third one is for conductor or metal, okay. Metal means there are very higher conductivity but resistivity is very low, okay. So here in this diagram we can see that the conduction band and valence band both are overlap to each other. That means there is no forbidden gap like semiconductor or insulator. This is the energy momentum diagram, or you can say this is the EK diagram. Okay. The effective mass, which is basically denoted by m suffix n, the effective mass of electron, and this is the relationship in between effective mass with energy and momentum. E is equal to p square by 2mn. Y axis represents the energy and the x axis represents the momentum, and this is the parabolic expression. That is why the plotting is looking like a parabola. Second one, the electron effective mass is depend on the properties of the semiconductor. That means the effective mass will be varied. Or the effective mass, basically the value of the effective mass is basically depends upon the material, which kind of material you have chosen, semiconductor material. We can obtain the effective mass from the second derivative of E with R. M suffix n is equal to d2E by dp square. Therefore, the narrower the parabola corresponding to a larger second derivative, the smaller the effective mass. And similar kind of expressions we can use for holes also, which is m of p, and m of p means which will be denoted the effective mass of holes. The effective mass concept is very useful because it enables us to treat electrons, negative particles and holes which are positive essentially as classical charged particle. Now this is the energy momentum diagram. So there are basically two kinds of band gap structure we are using. One is direct band gap and another one is indirect band gap. Y axis represents the energy axis, x axis represents the momentum. So in case direct band gap, which represented here by this figure 2, direct band gap means where the valence band, this is the lowermost band, this hump where where we can see the holes are confined over here, and here the upper band, the upper curve, here we can see there are negative particles, the bold circle represent confined over here. That means according to the direct band gap semiconductor definitions, we can say that the valence band and conduction band both are lying on a same line, and this is the band gap Eg. Okay, and del of E is nothing but the change of energy or the variations of energy. And the example of direct band gap material is gallium arsenide. Similarly, in case of indirect band gap, the valence band as well as the conduction band, that means both are, the valence band and conduction band both are not lying on a same line. That means the maxima of the valence band and the minima of the conduction band both are not lying on a same line. Here in case of direct band gap like gallium arsenide, we can see that the maxima of the valence band and the minima of the conduction both are lying on a same line. That is why it is called the direct band gap. But in case of silicon, both are not lying on a same line. That is why it is called the indirect band gap semiconductor. So now the intrinsic semiconductor, intrinsic means which are basically pure type of semiconductor. Okay, the number of holes is equal to the number of electrons. So how does the holes and electrons pair will be created? If we applied some temperature or voltage externally, then it can continues to produce new holes and electron pairs, whereas the holes and electron pairs disappear. How they disappear? Because at first when we excited this crystalline structure, which is shown over here externally by some thermal agitations or some external voltage, then what will be happened? The crystalline structure will be breaking down, a free electron will be generated, and this free electron will move from valence band to conduction band. This is called the generations of particles. So after generations, what will be happen? Electrons are losing some energy. Negative particles, they will losing some energy, and they will moving down towards the vacancy, and this is called the recombination. So after recombinations, both of these particles, the negative particles as well as the positive, both will disappear. Okay, so according to the principles of electronics, intrinsic semiconductor, we can say N is equal to P equal to Ni. Ni is called the intrinsic concentrations. This is the Fermi-Dirac distribution equations. Fermi-Dirac means this is a probability functions by which we can find out the probability of occupancy of electrons in a different electronic state. Okay, which is basically represented by these equations: 1 by 1 plus e to the power e minus ef. Ef is nothing but, it is called the Fermi energy lines. In case of intrinsic type of material, the Fermi energy lies just in middle portions, just in between the conduction band as well as the valence band. That means the probability of occupancy is 50%. Okay, K is Boltzmann constant and T is the absolute temperature. So if we vary the temperature, T is equal to T0, T is equal to T1, T is equal to T2. Suppose in this example, T is equal to 100 K, this is the initial temperature. Then we increase the temperature 300, 500 K, and the properties of this curve is also be changed. Okay, that means Fermi level, Fermi energy is the energy at which the probability of occupancy by electrons is exactly 1 half. I told earlier, but here if we vary the temperature, the generations and the recombination rates is also be changed, and but both are equal. That means how much amount of vacancies are created in a valence band, same amount of electrons are confined into the conduction band. So using FD distributions, we can derive the electron density at the bottom of the conduction band by using these equations. N is equal to number of electrons, and N is equal to represented by Nc, the number of electrons in conduction effective density states, the number of electrons in conduction band, and e to the power minus Ec minus Ef divided by Kt, which are these expressions we are basically getting from the Fermi-Dirac distribution. Okay, at room temperature 300 K, Nc is 2.86 into 10 to the power 19 centimeter cube for silicon, and 4.7 into 10 to the power 17 centimeter cube for germanium gallium arsenide. Similarly, if we want to calculate the hole density, which is equal to P, that will be equal to Nv e to the power minus Cf minus Ev divided by Kt. Ev is nothing but the effective density of states in the valence band, because holes are basically generated in valence band. That is why we are concentrating for hole calculations only in valence band. So at room temperature, Nv is equal to 2.66 into 10 to the power 19 centimeter cube for silicon, and 7.0 into 10 to the power 18 centimeter cube for gallium arsenide. So using the expressions Np equal to Na square, this is basically called the mass action law. According to the mass action law, it can say that in at thermal equilibrium condition, the product of negative charge density with positive charge density equal to a constant. Np is equal to Na square. By using these equations, we can easily find out the concentrations of electrons as well as the holes. So this is the extrinsic kind of semiconductor, extrinsic type of semiconductor. So extrinsic means where we are added some amount of impurities. This is not a pure type of semiconductor. Suppose this is a, so in case of extrinsic type of semiconductor, we are added some impurity externally. So that means the purity of the semiconductor has been lost. So if some pentavalent or trivalent impurities or materials are added to the intrinsic semiconductor such as silicon, germanium, the semiconductor becomes impure or extrinsic. So why impurity is needed? Because if you want to control the electrical properties of the semiconductor, or if you want to increase the electrical property or the conductivity of the material, then you have to add some amount of impurity. Okay, this is the crystalline structure. We added some amount of impurity over here, and this is the free electrons, and these are the covalent bonding in respect to each atom. The material you have chosen is germanium. This is the pure semiconductor bead, and impurities, pentavalent impurities we have added, which is SB. That means 4 hands are completely filled up with electrons, 1 hand is free due to added some amount of pentavalent impurity, and this is called the free electrons. Okay, so that is why it is called a donor kind of energy level. Okay, that means it can able to donate extra electrons easily from Fermi energy level to the conduction band. And that the difference in between conduction band and this donor level is equal to del of E, which is basically 0.01 volt, electron volt given here. And this is the valence band, and this one is the conduction band. So there are usually enough thermal energy to supply the energy to ionized all donor impurities at room temperature, and thus provide the same number of electrons in the conduction band, and this condition is called complete ionizations. Okay, so under a complete ionizations conditions, we can write the electron density n equal to Nd. Nd is called the donor concentrations, and figure A shows the complete ionizations where the donor level Ed is measured with respect to the bottom of the conduction band. Okay, why? Because this is the donor type semiconductor, that is why it is represented by the bottom of the conduction band. And the equal concentrations of electrons which are mobile in nature. Mobile means they can not stacked in a at a certain place. They have some mobility. Okay, and donor ions, which are basically immobiles, they are fixed, and these round circle are represented by the atom donor ions. Okay, which are immobiles, and the bold circle inside the conduction band represented the negative charge particles, which are electrons. We obtain the Fermi level in terms of the effective density of state, which is basically EC minus EF. EC is the energy in conduction band, and EF the Fermi energy, equal to KT log NC by ND. Similarly, the figure B shows the p-type material, which are basically in case of p-type material, this is basically made by group 3 element, and the impurity basically is called the acceptor type of impurities. So here we are added a impurity of boron, which is a group 3 element with silicon. Okay, then the EF minus EV equal to KT ln NV by Na. Na is nothing but the acceptor concentrations, and here the positions of level will be just above the conduction band. That is why it is called acceptor type of semiconductor. So if we compare these two, we can conclude that in case of n-type semiconductor, the donor ions were positive because electrons, after leaving this place, the negative particles, after leaving this place by the negative particles, they will obviously left some positive immobile ions. So in case, what will be happen? There are acceptor ions, that is why they will be negative. Okay. In case of p-type material, the Fermi energy level just above the conduction band, above the valence band. So these are the two useful expressions for electron and holes density in terms of intrinsic carrier concentrations, which is n of I, and intrinsic Fermi level E of I. The electron and hole concentrations are obtained by using these expressions: n equal to ni e to the power ef minus ei divided by kt, and p is equal to ni e to the power ei minus ef divided by kt. In case of p-type semiconductor bead, the energy of ei is greater than ef, but in case of n-type semiconductor bead, the energy of ei is less than ef, because this is a donut type bead. The Fermi energy is just below the conduction band, but here the positions of Fermi energy just above the valence band. So conductivity and mobility. So what is mobility? Electron mobility is basically denoted by mu suffix n, is a unit of centimeter square is the average drift velocity per unit electric field. So that means the mobility is basically denoted by Vx divided by E. That means it is the ratio of drift velocity, average drift velocity with electric field. Okay, and the expressions for mobility can be also written mu of n equivalent to qt divided by mn star. Mn star means this is the effective mass of the electron, and q is nothing but it is called the electronic charge, and is the mean, the free time or average time. T bar is called the free time or the average time between two successive collisions, and the current density due to the electron is proportional to the electric field. That means Jx is equal to sigma Ex. Sigma is a constant, and E of x is nothing but this is called the electric field. Similarly, the proportionality constant is called conductivity, that can be written as sigma is equal to n q square t by whole divided by mn, and it is equal to qn mu n. Hence the drift current density J of x is equal to qn mu n E of x. Okay, so now for holes, the mobility will be mu of p equal to plus Vx by E of x, and if both electrons and holes participate in current conduction, then the drift current density can be written as, this is a curve, mu represents the mobility, and this is the temperature axis, and this is the impurity scattering and lattice scattering. So hence the current density equal to current density of both particles, holes as well as electrons, equal to sigma Ex. The diffusions of carriers. Diffusion is the one kind of properties, okay, by which the charged particles are migrating from different side, from higher concentration to lower concentration region through the gradient of the axis. The diffusion current density for electrons equal to Jn diffusions. Similarly, for holes it will be Jp diffusions, and Dn and Dp are basically called the diffusion coefficients of electrons as well as the holes. So the total current density is nothing but it is the summations of Jn the current density of electrons and the current density of holes. So Jx is equal to Jnx plus Jpx. So J of Nx equal to nothing but it is equal to the summations of two current density. One is drift current, another one is diffusion current, which is equal to drift current is equal to already seen q mu n of x e of x plus diffusion is q into d of nx by dx. This is for electron density. Similarly for hole density it will be q mu of p, the mobility of positive particles, then p of x ex minus q dp dpx dx. So if we added these two terms Jnx and Jpx, we will get the total current density due to the migrations of both particles, electrons as well as holes. So now I am ending my lecture. Thank you.